Hey guys, so today I'm going to be making the Petal Dress by Samantha Marie Design, and I've already got my pieces cut, so I'll just show you what I've got cut out. These are my two skirt pieces. That's what it looks like. This is my panel piece, which is optional. I'm just doing this version for the ruffle. This is what the panel piece looks like. I've got my lining front bodice, and then this is the front bodice with the ruffle version. So these are the middle piece, and then these are the side pieces, which are gonna be, the ruffle is gonna be like sandwiched between those pieces. And then I have my main and lining back bodices. I've got my ruffles right here. These are the ones for the bodice ruffles, and then this is the one for the skirt, the panel. And then I have my sleeves, and I'm doing the flutter sleeve option. So I've had a lot of questions about how I do my gathers, so I wanted to do a video on the petal dress because it has a lot of gathering. It's gathered at the bodice, and then if you do the ruffles, that's gathered, and the bishop sleeves, or I'm doing the flutter sleeves, those are also gathered, only like right in this portion, so not the whole sleeve. So I just wanted to do a video on that today and hopefully help y'all answer some questions. I do two different methods of gathering. So for ruffles, I do them with my serger. And then for gathering waist, I like them to stretch, so I use elastic for that, but I also do that with my serger. So hopefully y'all enjoy this video. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do is hem my ruffles on my cover stitch, which you can use a sewing machine or however you like to hem. You could do a lettuce hem on your serger, but I've already got mine all clipped up, so I'm gonna go ahead and hem those. Hey guys, so I am done hemming my ruffles, and this is my settings for gathering. So I turn my differential feet all the way up, stitch length, and then my stitch width all the way down, because I don't want my serger seam to show through my ruffles. So that's what that looks like. And then up here, I'm gonna turn these up to 6, both of my needles. See how it's gathering back here? And that's what it looks like. One more thing I wanted to say is make sure you leave a very, very long tail and cut it off, so it's going to be as long as you possibly can have it. And the reason for this is because a lot of times my ruffle could be too small and you need the extra length to be able to stretch it out. So I'll show you how to do that while I'm already playing around with it. You just kind of lightly tug at it, and then it's gonna go down and like stretch back out. And you can do that on both ends. Just make sure to leave the gathers like pretty even throughout, but you just like lightly tug on it. So that's why you want to leave a really long tail, because I can already tell this looks like it's probably going to be too small. And if it's too big, if you need to tighten it more, I'll show you how to do that too. So I usually take my knit picker, and let's see if it'll focus. You need to find, I think it's the right needle. Yeah, it's the right needle thread. Wait, no, yes, that's the right needle, sorry. It's the right needle thread, and you just pull on it. You can clip these off while you do that in case you need to not forget. But you just kind of pull on it. And then if you need to bring it back out, just pull it back out. Okay, so now I have all my ruffles gathered, and I'll attach those in a minute. But while I've already got my settings on to gather, I'm going to take my sleeves and I'm going to go ahead and gather these as well. So on the pattern, there's these little notches, and I usually just make like a really small cut because that's going to come out in the seam allowance anyways, and it's just easier than me marking it with a pen or something. So it comes from here to here. So you're going to gather all of that just right there. You don't want to gather the whole sleeve or else it's not going to fit right. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do now that my ruffles are gathered, I'm going to take my panel piece and then we're going to attach the ruffle down here on this curve. So let's get our ruffle and see if it fits. Sometimes I usually have a little bit of adjusting to do, either make it like a little bigger, longer, or tighter. So we'll see how it is. I think it's going to be too small. We're going to have to make it a little longer. Yeah, that's a little too small. So we're just going to do like I showed earlier. Just lightly tug at it and pull it out a little bit. But you have to be careful to not go past this point because that's where your needle threads are. So if you go past that, then the ruffle will come undone. Take our curved piece, and you can get rid of these strings if you want to. I usually keep them just in case I'm wrong about it fitting right. So we're gonna clip right here. Put a clip right there. And then we're gonna go to the other end of our curve, clip right here, and make sure the ruffle is right sides with the panel. And then I usually just, yeah, see it needs to be just a little bit longer. And you can still do that even while it's clipped, just kind of tug on it still. And then I just kind of stretch it out until I find the middle of the panel and ruffle, and then I put a clip right there. And you want it to be 1-to-1, but see, my panel is a little bit longer, so we're gonna stretch out this ruffle just a little bit more. Okay, so now I think it's more 1-to-1. And then I'm gonna put one more clip between the end and the halfway point, so right here, and then one right here. So this is what it's gonna look like, and now we're gonna sew. So now that we're attaching our ruffles, we're gonna turn our needles back up to where they, or down to where they were. This is usually what my settings look like. I usually have 4.5, 5, 4.5, and then 4.5. But we're gonna keep our differential feet up, and then I'm gonna bump down the stitch width just 1 because I don't want it to be too crazy. And then we're gonna turn up our stitch length all the way, because if you don't do that, then you're probably gonna have your serger seam from the ruffle showing, and we don't want that. So let's get to attaching. You can clip these threads now. Let's get rid of those because I don't like them in my way. Bring it up. I'm gonna move the first clip back just a little bit. And you want to make sure when you're serging this on to not accidentally cut off one of the needle threads, or else your ruffle will come completely undone, and that is the worst thing ever. So you can cut off a little bit, like all this messy stuff right here, that's just from the gathers, so just cut that off, but don't cut too far. So we're gonna go nice and slow, cutting off just a little bit. You honestly don't have to cut anything off at all since we widen our stitch width. I just like to adjust my ruffles a little bit because I want it to be even all around. And I'm gonna finish this up. Okay, so we've got the ruffle attached to our panel, and this is what it looks like. That's what it looks like. So we're gonna put this to the side right now because that's basically stopping point for that for now. Now we're gonna do our bodice ruffles. So we're gonna take this front version, and I'm just gonna put it on top of me so y'all can see what I'm doing. And then we're gonna take our little ruffles. We're gonna put them right here. And they fit perfectly. So I'm just gonna clip the edges, and then I'm gonna start to clip this together. So that's gonna be on the left side, and then we're gonna take, where's the other piece? Oh, we're gonna take the side pieces, and we're gonna see which one matches up with it, and I think it's this one. And then we're gonna sandwich, the ruffle is going to be sandwiched between these two pieces. So we've got our side piece, and this is the middle piece, and then we've got our ruffle sandwiched in between it, and this is what it's gonna look like. And you're just gonna serge right here, or if you're using a sewing machine, you're gonna sew right there. So I'm gonna do that real quick, and then we'll be back. Okay, so this is what it looks like with the one side. So now we're gonna do the same thing on this side. So we're gonna take our ruffle and sandwich it between those two pieces and then sew it on, and I'll be back. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is take our front piece, and then we've got our back pieces right here, and we're gonna take one back piece, connect the shoulder seams, and then we're gonna sew right here on both sides. Okay, so I went ahead and did the shoulder seams of our lining piece too. So now we're gonna open this up. And we're gonna do, make sure you have your front side lining piece and front side main piece together like this. And we're gonna sew this inner neckline. We're gonna sew all right here. I usually like to place a clip on the shoulder seams so they stay together and don't come out of place. And I'm gonna do that real quick, and then we're gonna sew. And it is a square neckline, so you gotta be careful around the edges. Unless you want to round it out, you can totally do that too. But I like the squared look. I'm just putting the clips right here, and then we're gonna sew. So this is what we've got right now. Looks like this. Now we're gonna flip it right side out. So this is what it looks like right now. The ruffles are super cute. They look really great. And now we're gonna do our sleeves. So we've got it like this. Now we're gonna flip it out so it looks like this. We've got our front piece showing, and then we're just going to put the sleeve right on top, make sure it fits. And I need to tighten my gathers just a little bit. So I've got my sleeve clipped on, and see, it's just this part right here that's gathered. So we're just gonna sew it like this. So this is what it looks like so far, and I'm really happy with how it's coming out. The sleeves are super cute. So what I'm gonna do now is flip it inside out, and then I'm just gonna sew right here. So this is the side of the bodice, and then the seam on the sleeves, and we're just gonna sew right here, and I'll be back. So I went ahead and hemmed the sleeves. I decided to stay with the flutter sleeves instead of doing the puff. I think it's super cute this way. So the next thing we're gonna do, our bodice is all complete. All we have to do is attach this to the skirt, but we've got to finish our skirt. So we're gonna take our skirt pieces, and for now we're gonna separate them and just have one. We're gonna put our panel on top of it, and like right sides are gonna be facing out. We've got this, and then we're gonna put our other skirt piece right sides to the panel, and this is how it's gonna look. So you've got your main skirt, the panel, and then the other skirt, and we're gonna sew both the side seams. But you want to be careful whenever you do your ruffle. I kind of have to fiddle with it. I like to start when I'm doing the ruffle side. Well, it has ruffle on both sides because it's round. But when I'm doing this side where the ruffle's coming up, I like to start on the bottom so I can like fiddle with the ruffle when I get close and make sure not to snag like the whole side of the ruffle. You just want to get like this little portion in the seam. You don't want to do like the whole entire ruffle in the seam. And then on the side you kind of want to do the same thing. You don't want to get like the whole entire ruffle in, you just want to get like the smaller portion in the seam. So I'm gonna sew and I'll be back. So I went ahead and hemmed the bottom of my skirt piece as well. But this is what it looks like after attaching the panel. So now all we have to do is gather the waist and attach our bodice. So I'm going to show you how to gather the waist. I use elastic for this part. This is just a 1/4 inch clear elastic, super easy. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my bodice and I'm gonna basically use this as like my measuring tape for the elastic. So I put it up like right here, stretch it out as much as I can, or not stretch it, but you want it to be like, you don't want it to be all wrinkled up when you do your elastic. So we take it and this is the point, so this is like how you want to measure it. And then I keep this part, and then I just get a clip and put a clip right where that side seam was, and then you bring it down and then just cut whenever you meet the other piece of the elastic. So I like to usually leave a little bit of wiggle room because you're going to overlap the elastic when attaching it. And I'll show you what I mean by that. But now what I like to do is I basically like to quarter up my elastic. So if you're familiar with like quartering like cuffs or something, it's like the same thing, but instead of clipping it, I'm just gonna put some clips. And I also like to give it some stretch first, because at first it's not going to be very stretchy until you start stretching it, if that makes sense. So now I'm going to get another clip and do the same thing. Put a clip right there. So now my elastic is all evenly quartered. Sorry. So our starting point is going to be a seam, and then that's going to be the halfway point, another seam, halfway point, and then back to the first seam, and it's going to overlap a little bit. So that's why I like to have like an inch of wiggle room, because it's going to overlap like this much, like that. And then what I like to do to the skirt, I either put clips there or I'll cut it. All right, so we're gonna change some things on here. We're gonna turn our differential feed back up like we did when we gathered, this back up and this back down. So it's basically gonna be our gathered serger settings, except we're not gonna mess with the needles. And then we're gonna turn our knife off because we don't wanna cut our elastic. All right, so we're gonna take our skirt and we're gonna start at a seam. And then we're gonna take an end piece of the elastic. We're gonna try to stick it up in there as far as we can, so it picks up the elastic very quickly, because you don't want to start stretching until it has the elastic. This part can get annoying sometimes. I'm gonna lower the presser foot, start sewing, and it's got my elastic, so now I'm gonna start stretching. And it takes a while to get used to how much you have to stretch. Coming up on the halfway point, we're gonna let go of both clips. Not quite enough stretching that time, but that's okay. And then when you get to the panel part, make sure that you have, sorry, bumped the tripod. Make sure you have the front piece and the panel piece. You don't want to miss both pieces. All right. Coming back around to our tail, so I'm going to clip that. Again, make sure you've got both layers in there. now we're coming back around to where the overlap is going to be. I'm going to stretch a little bit more, and then we're just going to serge like normal and not stretch anymore because it's going to go up in there. And now we're done. So I'm going to clip my tail. And now it's time to attach our bodice. Alright, so this is what it looks like at this point. So now we're going to turn it back inside out. We're going to stick our bodice inside, and then we're going to attach it. Okay, so my bodice is clipped inside of my skirt piece, and there's a few things that you want to be sure of before you start sewing. You want to make sure that you have your front bodice facing your front skirt. Okay, you want the panel in the front, you don't want the panel in the back. You want to make sure that your ruffle pieces are facing outwards, because sometimes it'll try to flip inwards. So I'm going to put a clip right there with it facing outwards to make sure that I don't forget that. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this one, because this one keeps wanting to flip in for some reason. So we're going to put a clip right there to keep it in place. I like to keep my knife off when I sew this part as well. And then I also turn my stitch width all the way up. Okay, so for this part, I like to have the elastic on top so I know that I'm sewing past this seam, or else it's going to show on the right side and it's not going to look very pretty. I'm going to flip my skirt inside so it's easier to sew. Okay, so let's place this back properly. We've got our stitch width all the way up. When we attached our elastic, it was all the way down. We've got our differential feed and stitch length still all the way up, so don't change those. You don't have to change anything except the stitch width. So you want to make sure that you get as close to the knife as possible because it's off, and you want to get that full stitch width to make sure that you cover up this elastic. Sorry, I keep bumping the tripod. And I'll show you when I get to a stopping point how you can see that it's covering the elastic. So our dress is complete and I love it. Look how pretty that is. Look how pretty. Looks so pretty, it looks so neat, it's not wavy. Look how even it is with the elastic. Hope y'all enjoy this video. Thank you.